Hey guys, welcome back to Married Life U Chats. We're going to talk about a great subject today that I think you are all going to love.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and... Okay,
so this subject probably should have been talked about already, but I am going to say that all the other subjects we've covered, date night, getting to know each other, checking in, communication, all of those things lead to a better sex life. So they're all hugely important to lead up to this point. But it is important that we do talk about sex itself because sex is important.
it is. It's not just physically fun and enjoyable and fulfilling on the physical level. It also is on the on the mental and the spiritual
I'm like, it better...
and the emotional level.
Yeah.
A lot of times, obviously, outside influences can affect your sex life. You know,
Absolutely.
Stress, just all kinds of various different things. Busyness of life.
Lack of communication.
Illness, sickness,
Whatever.
But when you can be fine emotionally and connected, and then you go for a while without having sex, it's going to mess up that because there's...
mess up your emotional connection.
Yeah, your emotional
Absolutely.
connection. So there's something very important.
All tied together.
It all tied together. It's not like one thing. We're not segmented people. We're whole human beings. Whole human beings. We're not just a bunch of parts. Okay, so it's very important to look at sex holistically.
And one thing that we've said before when we've talked about communication is that emotional intimacy does lead to good physical intimacy. So it is important that you guys are just connecting on an emotional level and that you're continuing to have conversations, because there's just something about being vulnerable and sharing with one another that just leads to a much more fulfilling physical intimacy. It just allows you to be more vulnerable with your body. So they're definitely tied together.
And depending on what stage and what stage of life you're in, whether you've been married for a long time, how old, how young you are, there's just how your body's changed. Things go through different. We go through different seasons. So if you don't have that open door of communication, then you don't have the opportunity to be able to talk about when there are problems that arise. And nobody wants to live in a sexless marriage.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have that open communication so that when there's stuff not quite working right, you can have that conversation. And don't take it too damn seriously either. I'm talking about have fun.
Yeah.
Be creative.
Yeah, and that's some of the tips. We just want to give you guys some tips as well, and that's a couple of them. Make sure to have fun. Make sure to be creative. Sometimes you need to schedule it, and I know that sounds ridiculous, and hopefully that's not the norm. But there are seasons of life that sometimes you just have to schedule it, because otherwise you'll go forever because you're busy and you have kids and they're young and there's events and activities, and so sometimes you got to do that too. But that doesn't mean you can't be creative and have fun anyway.
And let me just say, we put important things in our calendars.
Yes, we do.
We worship the calendar. So it's important. It may not feel romantic, Rick. I don't give a flying flip. Is it important? I put date night in the calendar.
Right.
I put my appointments in the calendar when I got to do work. There's lots of things I put in the calendar. So sometimes you just have to do that. It's a season. It's a life. It's just the way it is.
Sometimes it's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's not all romantic all the time, and it's always romantic. That's too personal. But no, just kidding. There's just been fun. You just sometimes have to laugh at yourself when things don't go right. You got to be open. Not everything always goes smoothly. As we all know, if you've been married for any time or any length of time, your body's changed. There's odors. You have kids. There's whatever. There's just funny things happen. So you got to be able to take it lightly, take sex seriously, but don't take it seriously when you're actually coupling. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you help me clean that up?
No,
okay,
you're fine.
Good.
Yeah, you're very passionate about the subject.
Sex. I like the sex.
There's nothing to.
What did George Michael say?
I don't remember.
Okay.
The other thing I want to add is just make sure to break any religious stigmas that you might have around it, because if you grew up in any kind of Christian home or even any kind of conservative beliefs, you may have been taught that sex is bad, or you may feel like it's bad. And it's really important to just address that stuff head on, invite God into your marriage bed. I know that sounds really strange, but it's so important. You know, he is the center of your relationship. And so, I mean, he wants it to be fun. We were created for pleasure. God created us for pleasure. I mean, in Psalm 16, it says that in his presence are pleasures forevermore. Like, we are meant to experience pleasure. And so he wants this to be free and fun. So if you've got any religious stigmas going on in your mind, make sure and deal with those and confront them head on. And we do, like Rick was saying, we understand that sometimes there are seasons of your life, whether physically, like you can't. You know, you've had a baby, you've had surgery, you could be going through something major. Just make sure that you're always staying connected in any way that you can, right? There are other things that we can do aside from sex, and I don't have to list all those because we should know. But just make sure that you're continuing to have fun with one another with physical intimacy.
Sex is natural. Sex is fun. Sex is best when it's one-on-one. Thank you, George Michael.
And if you have any other questions about this subject,
ask Melissa.
Make sure and contact us through our marriedlifeu.com website, where you can find our Facebook, Instagram, emails, all that you need, as well as a lot of other great Married Life U chats.